Promptalot PRO just got a huge update, including some of the most requested features of the past few months. And these new features not only help you reduce the clutter even further, they also help you save tons of time and even money. So stick around while I walk you through each and every new feature in minute detail. As you know, the free version of Promptalot comes with this nifty little Chrome extension that attaches itself to the bottom of every single one of your prompts within Midjourney in Discord. And while all of these features have proven to be very useful to over 9,000 different users of the extension, it's also true that not everybody loves the layout. For some, the layout is just way too big, and others just don't like the relatively bright teal color scheme. So that's why in the last big update, I introduced features that allowed Pro users to choose from 5 different color schemes, as well as a more compact layout style. Now that in itself was already a huge improvement over what we had before, but I decided to go one step further. So starting today, Pro users get unprecedented control over what the layout of their toolbar looks like. And let me show you what I mean. So push myself here to the right, and if you open up the settings on the toolbar by clicking on the cogwheel here, you'll immediately notice a big change. While before we only had this drop-down menu which allowed you to choose the style of the toolbar, and these 2 switches at the bottom which allowed you to switch the info bar on and off as well as the Midjourney stats, you now have all of these checkboxes here. And what they allow you to do is they allow you to turn on or off each one of the individual buttons on the toolbar. So if there are any features of the toolbar that you basically never use, this is your opportunity to now switch them off and thereby make your toolbar a lot more compact and less cluttery. So let me briefly show you how this actually works. So you remember what the toolbar looks like down here. This is in the regular large mode of the toolbar. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn off all sorts of buttons that I don't actually need. And what you can see in the background already is that they're all starting to disappear. And I'm going to turn them all off just for now. And you can see they've all disappeared, except for, of course, the cogwheel for the control panel. Now, let's say I only need these main copy buttons and maybe this expand, download, and that's about it. And I'll add the delete one. Maybe I don't actually use the management features on Promptalot. Then this is what my buttons might look like. So you see the toolbar is a lot smaller already. And if I actually switch to the compact version of the toolbar, then you'll see it's even smaller than before. And if I wanted to turn off the delete button, I could do that as well as an additional security precaution, just in case you sometimes press that button a lot. Who knows? So this is how this feature works. It's very, very convenient, and I think it's really useful, especially if there are certain features that you just never use. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, because whether you believe it or not, I do read the comments under my videos. Some of you are thinking, well, what's the point of this whole extension if Midjourney is going to move to a web user interface very soon anyway? And yes, technically you're right, but there's a couple of things I'd like to point out here. First of all, we have no clue when it's really coming, and not everyone's actually going to use the web user interface in the first place, because a lot of people will probably stick to Discord because they just enjoy being in Discord. And let's face it, people are only going to switch to the web user interface if they just hate Discord, or if it actually allows them to prompt more efficiently. Now, I've seen some of the early alpha versions of the web UI that Midjourney was working on, and I can tell you, yes, while it is prettier, it's not necessarily always better in all respects. And as with everything, most likely it will have its own set of flaws that will need some sort of fixing. So once the web UI does become available, you can reasonably expect me to start working on a toolbar that will be available on the web UI as well. And don't forget that many of you don't actually work with Midjourney exclusively. Promptalot might be focused on Midjourney right now, but that's not necessarily going to be the case forever. Anyway, so as useful as all of this may be, it's only the tip of the iceberg, because I've got a lot more in store for you. Now, I must admit that the split image grid feature has already been around for a few weeks already. I quietly pushed out that update in order to help alleviate some of the most pressing issues at the time. As you know, Midjourney version 5 still does not have its own upscaler yet, and while that might change once version 6 gets released, we don't really know when that will be, and for the time being, it's still a bit of an annoyance. So let's say you want to get your hands on one particular image within a given grid. Or maybe you even want to get all 4 of the images of a grid, but as individual files. Right now, you essentially have 2 options. You can either upscale each one of the images or the one that you need, then download that image or open it up in a new tab and then save that image, or you can react with the envelope icon, and then the Midjourney bot will send you additional details about the job, as well as each one of the images from the grid as an individual file. But you still then need to download it or open the image and right-click Save. Unfortunately, both of these approaches are still massively tedious, and that's why I introduced the split image feature. Now, let me just quickly activate it again because I managed to hide it earlier. But it's this button with the scissors down here. Now, this button will not appear on every single one of the toolbars. It will only appear under jobs within Midjourney that are actual image grids. So it will not show up on an individual upscale, because why would you want to split an upscaled image into 4 quadrants anyway? Now, what happens when you click on this button is it sends a request to the server. The server then grabs the full-size image of the grid, splits that image into each one of the quadrants, renames the individual files, and then bundles them into a zip file that is automatically downloaded by your browser. Now, I know that sounded a little bit complicated, so let me rather show you how this works. I've prepared these 2 prompts. One is a photo of a woman standing in Rome, and the other is, well, just a bunch of hamburgers. Now, let's say I wanted to split each one of these into individual images. What I would do is I would just click on the scissors here. I would then wait a few seconds, and this tends to take around up to 10 seconds. And then you can see that now it's basically marked this button as green. It's also added this little button up here just to show you that you've already split it. And it was added to our downloads folder over here. And you can see that there's a zip file now. If I unzip this file, I can then take a look at each one of the images. And let's just move myself here. And you can see they're all full-sized, well, full-size based on what Midjourney actually produces. But you can't really upscale these any further within Midjourney. This is the biggest that you're going to get. But you can see we have each one of them, and they're named properly with their U1, U2, U3, 4 buttons. All right, so let me just quickly show you that it works with the other one as well. I'm going to split this one. And then after a couple of seconds, we'll have the exact same thing happen again. And there you go. These are all 4 of our images, each one individually. I'm just going to quickly delete those. Now, obviously, this process still takes a couple of seconds, but it's still a lot quicker than any of the other alternatives that you had before. Just remember, with the other ones, you would have to upscale them individually. That takes some time. Then you have to click the download button individually. That takes some time. And then you may even have to rename the files afterwards as well, because I think they actually all keep the same name based on the prompt. And this tends to be much, much faster. Now, speaking of speed, I also added another additional feature that will help you speed up your workflow as well. Let me show you. If you're anything like me, then you don't actually download Midjourney images all that much. You see, I don't create images in Midjourney just for the sake of creating images. I usually create my images because I need them for some type of project or something else that I'm creating at the time. So that's why I rarely download images. Usually I will just open them up, right-click, copy the image, and then I paste them straight into the application in which I want to use them. Now, the Promptalot Helper extension already helps with that because you can simply click on the expand button here and it will open up in a new tab. But the problem is you still need to right-click the image in order to copy the image. Now, this may not seem like a lot of work, but if you prompt a lot, sorry, pun not intended, then these little tiny optimizations and additional seconds will add up over time. And anyone who is serious about learning how to prompt effectively and who wants to use Midjourney in a professional context will completely understand that these optimizations, they matter a lot. Hey, sorry for interrupting you right in the middle of the video, but I just wanted to share something with you. As many of you know, I have an online video course called Masters of Midjourney, which teaches you all of the foundational skills that you need in order to get the most out of Midjourney. And I know that some of you are still on the fence, trying to figure out whether this is right for you. And I get it. You look at all of the free stuff that I share right here on my YouTube channel, and you ask yourself, how much more can there really be? Well, many of the things that I do in these videos, including the method that I just used, are explained in far more detail in the course. I show many different examples, and I teach these to a degree that makes sure that you really understand how they work and you can apply them to pretty much any project, not just one particular use case. So if you want to learn how to control Midjourney and prompt with intent, then visit mastersofmidjourney.com. I'll see you on the flip side. So that's why pro users can now copy their images directly to the clipboard. That's right, all it takes is a simple click of a button, no more opening up in a new tab or right-clicking. You could just click one single button and it goes to the clipboard. Let me demonstrate this real quick. So let's say I've upscaled an image from this lady here, and I now want to copy it. What I'll do is I'll look for the button down here that says copies the full-size image to your clipboard, and it's literally just a clipboard icon. What I do is I click it, and it saves it to the clipboard, and now I can switch to an image editor and open it up straight away. Just to prove that this works with anything, I can do it with this one as well. I go back, I paste it, and there you go. By the way, I'm just pasting with Control V, right? Now, you can also use this on image grids. I don't really know why you would want to do that, but if you want to, you can do that as well. So it works on pretty much any job that you like within Midjourney. Now, granted, these are only small optimizations, but again, these add up over time. However, with the next feature, I think that's something that all of you are going to find quite compelling. So for those of you who use Midjourney to create icons, stickers, t-shirt designs, or just regular design elements, this next feature is going to come really in handy. There are many services out there that already offer this sort of a feature. And for the most part, I must confess that their background removal is really, really good. However, they also tend to be really expensive, especially if you need to remove a lot of backgrounds on a lot of images. The cost really does add up if you are charged on a credit basis or on an individual image basis. So that's why I decided to integrate a background removal feature straight into the Promptalot helper extension. While it may not be the best one on the market, I do believe it is probably the best value on the market. You see, while most of the other services are limited by the number of credits that you have, this extension will allow you to remove as many backgrounds as you want. So if one of your background removals actually ends up being not as great as you had hoped it would be, no problem, because it didn't cost you anything.
Nice.
Now, Promptalot's background removal feature comes with several different models to choose from, and each model behaves a little differently. Each one is optimized for certain use cases. So for example, if you wanted to remove the background on an image such as this one, with a human in the image, especially photos, then you would most likely want to choose the human segmentation model. But if you're working on something like this hamburger here, which is more of an illustration or drawing, then you would choose the illustration and drawings model. And you can switch between different models at any time you like, simply by changing your settings. So let me quickly demonstrate how this works. I'm going to go into my settings here, and then we will choose the Tools tab up here. And this shows us some new features to choose from. For now, we're only interested in the background removal model. So in this case, I'm going to start off with human segmentation. And I close this window, and then I need to still activate, the background removal button, which is this eraser icon down here. And this will only show up on individual upscaled images. You cannot remove the background on these image grids because it just doesn't make sense. So we're going to use the human segmentation model to remove the background for this photo of this woman. So I'm going to click on the eraser, and this is going to take anywhere between 10 to 30 seconds. Usually it's more like 10 to 15 seconds. I think that wasn't even 10 seconds, which is awesome. Now let's check out what the image looks like. So you'll see it appends this word removed at the end of the file. If I open this up, it's removed most of the background, but it's not quite perfect. So you can see there's still some remainders here, and here it's removed a little bit too much. So even though we chose the human segmentation model, it's not 100% perfect. But let me show you something. You need to test different models for different images. So for example, in this case, there is a model that is called General Purpose Plus, and it's literally just that. It's a general purpose model that will be relatively good with all sorts of different use cases. And Plus simply because it's a relatively new one. If I select this one and try to then remove the background one more time, we'll see that it processes the image one more time. And once it downloads, let's see when this happens. There you go. We can open it up. And this time, you'll see that this time it's actually removed the background much better.
Perfect.
Now, this may seem a little counterintuitive because the human segmentation model was supposed to be better, But again, that's the point. You need to test these models for different images. And it could be that on the next one you work on, it might be the other way around. Now, let me quickly show you how this impacts the way this image here of the hamburger is processed. I'm going to use the general purpose one first. Click on the eraser button. And after a couple of seconds, it shows up in our downloads. And as you can see, it's removed most of the background. However, it's also removed the background on some of the, or like the color in some of these sesame seeds up here. So let's see what happens if we switch to the model that's actually meant for this kind of stuff. So I'm going to switch to illustrations and drawings, close this window, and we'll press the button one more time and wait about 10 seconds or so. And here you go, downloaded. And this looks much better at the top end of the image, but you can see this little bit of an issue down here. But again, this is something you can easily fix. You could also create a composite of both of these images, which would give you essentially the perfect one. And again, there's a couple other models here. For example, there's a clothing segmentation and just an older general purpose one. I really recommend that you test different models for different images. Bear in mind that this will not always produce perfect results, but it doesn't really matter because you can keep retrying this over and over again. So even though this may not be the market-leading background removal tool, I do think that it is a huge value add for Promptalot Pro users. But I'm still not done yet. I've got one more new feature in store for you. Now, I know this feature will not necessarily be useful to everyone. This feature was introduced based on a user request, and it's tailored towards a very specific workflow. As you know, re-rolling prompts works because not every single time you enter a command, it will necessarily give you the perfect image right away. Midjourney's randomness just works that way, and sometimes you'll need 3, 4, 5, or maybe even 10 attempts until you find that perfect image in one of those grids. So let's say you spend a lot of time reusing the very same prompt over and over again, but with different seeds, just in order to iterate through many variations and pick the perfect one. In the case of this particular user who requested the feature, the way he works is that he uses a prompt and then he will append a seed using number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, up until 20. So he's essentially re-rolling the same prompt 20 times, except that he's not re-rolling. Instead, he's entering a specific prompt and adding the seed at the end, and then he just goes 1 to 20. Now, if you wanted to do this manually, you would have two options. You could either literally enter the prompt once, add the seed 1, then enter the prompt again, remove the 1, add 2, prompt it again, and always switch out the number and do that 20 times. Obviously, this is an incredibly cumbersome process. Now, your second alternative would be to do the very same thing, except use permutation syntax in order to make it a bit quicker. That would look a little bit like this prompt right here. So imagine, and then you enter your full prompt, then you add the seed parameter, and then you put the numbers for the seeds in curly braces. Now, obviously this works, but let's say your series is pretty long. Adding each one of those numbers individually in permutation syntax, that's still going to be a massively annoying thing to do. It's going to take quite a bit of time. So that's why I built the batch seeder feature. And you can configure the batch seeder within the extension configuration settings. Let me quickly open this up and show you. It's in the Tools tab again. And here you can see there's two values that you can set. The first value is the starting value for the seed that you want to use. So if you don't want to do 1 to 20, you could let them start at 100, 1000, or 572. Doesn't matter, whatever you want to do. The second value defines the count. So wherever you start, it will increment by 1 until it hits that total count. So in this case, I've set 100, so it will be 101, 102, 103, up until 110. So let me briefly show you how this works. And I'm going to try to do this with a little bit less just to not overload things here. Or let's maybe just do 3 to keep things simple. And what you need to do first is you need to copy the prompt that you want to use. Remember, you cannot do this straight away. You still need to enter your first prompt manually. But once you've done that, in this case, I'm going to use, we'll use this woman here, the elegant woman walking through the streets of Rome with an aspect ratio of 2 to 3. I would simply copy that entire prompt with the aspect ratio. And what I do then is I go to this button over here that looks like a stacked list and says easily iterate through seed sequences. I click on this, and what it will do is it will append the seed with the permutations at the end of the prompt that I just copied. It does not automatically copy the entire full prompt for you. You first need to copy the prompt using one of the copy buttons. And the good thing about this is that you can basically also mix and match with different elements. So let's say I wanted to use this prompt here, but only the text prompt, and I want to use the parameters from this one up here, and I would click here. Then it really depends on what you're doing, right? So let's say I'm going to go back to here and then click this, and that's my prompt. I'm going to say imagine, paste it, and then I enter it, and I say yes. And this will now automatically use each one of the seeds that I've defined and produce a different image grid for me. Now, with 3 numbers, it's not that big of a deal. But if you're doing 20, 30, I don't know how many, it doesn't really matter. This can be a huge time saver as well. Again, this may not be a feature that necessarily everyone needs, but for those of you who work in a similar way as this particular user who requested the feature, I think this is going to save you a lot of annoying and cumbersome processes, and especially a lot of clicking and typing and, editing in your prompt field. This was the final feature update for today. Some of these features were among the top requests over the past few months, and that's why I wanted to implement them as soon as possible. Soon I'll be focusing on creating an even stronger integration between the Promptalot extension as well as the Promptalot website. My objective is to not only make it easier for you to manage the prompts that you want to save, but also perhaps to allow you to showcase the ones that you like the most. I also want to enable you to store more than just midjourney prompts, because the recent release of DALL-E 3 has shown us that the world does not only revolve around midjourney. None of us really know what the role of prompt engineering will be in the future. However, I do believe, and I sincerely believe, that there's going to be thousands of companies that are going to be looking for talented prompters. And Promptalot could become one of those places where you not only manage your prompts and showcase your best prompts, but perhaps even get hired by one of those companies. Who knows? Until then, I'll just keep on building. I hope you enjoyed this quick update on Promptalot, and perhaps you'll consider becoming a pro user. Remember to check the video description for my midjourney course, as well as a whole bunch of other free stuff. Thank you for watching, and remember to keep on learning. Take care. Cheers.